Okay, there we go. So this week's Parsha, this week's Shabbos is called Shabbos Breishis. It's not just that it's the name of the Parsha, but it's the name of the whole Shabbos. We don't get that very often, that the Shabbos is named Shabbos Breishis. It's usually Shabbos, then the particular Parsha of that week, that's all. But here, the whole character and nature of the Shabbos is called Shabbos Breishis. I want us to wonder why it picks up that name of Shabbos Breishis. So there's a very interesting drasha that the rabbis make, an exposition that the rabbis make by the commandment of Sukkot. It tells us in the Torah, "Ulekachtem lechem b'yom harishon," that you will take for yourselves on the first day. And our rabbis expound and explain there that what does that mean? That the Yom Rishon, why is it called that you shall take for yourselves on the first day? It really should tell us the date. Take for yourselves on the 15th of Tishrei. But why say take for yourselves on the first day? So rabbis explain because it really is the Rishon lecheshbon avonosechem, that it's the first day to the calculation of your sins. You see, after Yom Kippur, when we ask God to make sure that we live sin-free, so we then have 4 days to prepare for Sukkot. During that time of preparation for Sukkot, you're buying a lulav and esrog, you're building a sukkah, you're cooking, you're preparing, you're getting yourself ready, winding down from Yom Kippur, building up to the season of the festival of holidays, and there really is no time for a person to sin. Then comes Sukkot, and now the cheshbon, the calculation of the year begins then. So I'll tell you that I think that as beautiful a drasha that is, I'm not sure that it's complete reality. Because even during Sukkot, you're living in a spiritual la-la land. You're living in this spiritual bubble. There's chag all around you. There's this tremendous feeling, even when we're in lockdown, and even when it's when it's a different kind of existence. But there's this incredible feeling that you're engaged inside of the holiday. There was so much energy that people spent on how to celebrate Simchas Torah. So somebody said to me that it didn't feel like Simchas Torah. So what are you talking about? It of course felt like Simchas Torah. It was a very different one, but think of the way you planned for it, and think of how much mindset went into it, and how much organization went into it. It was also Simchas Torah, and you didn't really have an opportunity to really begin the year. It's every time if you're working or you have a schedule, the schedule gets turned upside down. There's no time to really begin. Shabbos Breishis is the beginning of the year. It's the beginning of getting back into normalcy, getting back into a pattern, taking the things that we had done before Yontif and putting them into practice now. All the things that we thought about over Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the ways that we thought that we were going to make improvements in our lives, that we were going to make changes, all of that is beginning now. Shabbos Breishis is really the tomorrow that you push things off to yesterday. It's really that this is now the beginning of the year. It's not just that we're reading Parshas Breishis, but that we're actually beginning the life of our year. We're beginning that now. And if that's the case, then we need to look at the Parsha and ask ourselves, what is it that we get from this Parsha that will help me begin my year? It's got to go more than just the fact that we're talking about that God created the world. It's got to be more than the fact that it's just that there was a creation, there was a creator. There is something about the wording in the Parsha, there's something about the setup of the Parsha that is going to give me the tools that I need in order to be able to actually spend this year growing and raising myself. And I think that you have to start with the first letter of the Torah. The first letter of the Torah is a letter that shouldn't be there because it's the letter Beis. It's the number 2. You would imagine that the Torah needs to start with 1, that the Torah needs to start with an Alef. So one of the explanations that our rabbis give, that the reason that the Torah begins with the letter Beis, if you look at the Beis is closed on three sides. And what the message of the letter Beis is that we really don't understand what's on top of us. And we'll never comprehend what's beneath the earth. And we can never fully understand what's before time. But the one thing that we do know is from this point onwards, going forward, that we can fathom and understand, that we can grasp and put our arms around. And the letter Beis gives us the direction and the understanding not to focus and to worry about what was here before the world was created. What's the heavens? What's up there? What's down there? That's not your business. What we need to be focusing on is living and moving forward. But maybe it goes even deeper. Because if the Torah would have begun with an Alef, then that would have spoken of godliness. Alef, Elokim, one. The letter Alef, when it's written in the Torah, is made up of two yuds and a vav. A yud on top, a yud on the bottom, and the vav in the middle. The numerical value of the yud is 10. 2 tens and a vav is 6. It's 26. 26 is godliness. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. The name Adonai. The name of God. That Alef could have given us everything we needed. That life is all about God. Our existence is all about God. It seems almost like a terribly missed opportunity. The Alef, if it would have been Elokim, then the Torah would have began Elokim bara Breishis. That God created the beginning. He created everything. That would have been an uplifting message. Why did God go with the letter Beis? So the Medrash quotes Rabbi Shimon ben Azai and says that normally a basar v'dam, a human being, mazkir shmo, he remembers, mentions his name, v'achar shevachai, and then his praise. In other words, he says, Richard, the lion-hearted, Bob, the builder. You start with a name and then with what you do. But aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu eino kein. Ela misha bara tzarchei olamo, when God created the needs of the world, then achar kach mazkir shmai. That first he talked about the deed, what was done, the creation of the world. Bereishis bara. And then he identified himself. And then it's Elokim. Because God starts with a Beis, with Breishis, with bara, with creation, to let us know and understand the midah, the characteristic of humility. It's not about me. It's about what's being done. Breishis bara. Once I've established that there is a bria, that there is a world, and that the world is dear to me, then I'm willing to tell you my name. I'm willing to reveal who it is that created it, and then we can put the word Elokim. God starts with a Beis to demonstrate that the midah of humility, which is the center of all midas, it's the foundation of a Jew's relationship with himself. It's the foundation of a Jew's relationship with other people. And it's the foundation of a Jew's relationship with God. The letter Beis, too, by definition means that there's more than just one. There's more than just me. That there is unity. There are things that are joining together. There are others. The letter Beis is spelled Bayis. Beis Yud Tuf. Because what is a bias? A bias is a place, a space that takes people and draws them together. And the only way to be drawn together with others is if you have a sense of humility, if you have a sense of your place in the world, if you have an ability to make room and to make space for other people. You know, an amazing thing? On the front of our doors, of every door, there's a mezuzah. And there's a machlokes. How should the mezuzah be placed on the door? One opinion holds the mezuzah should be placed vertically. The other opinion holds that the mezuzah should be placed horizontally. And if you look at an Ashkenazic door, what you're going to see is that the mezuzah is placed on an angle. And the reason that the mezuzah is placed on an angle is because we make a pshara, we make a compromise. Because there's an opinion that says straight, an opinion that says horizontally, and therefore we go into the middle. Now, what a beautiful idea. It's a crazy idea. We don't do that in halacha. Yeah, you hold that we should keep Shabbos, I hold we shouldn't keep Shabbos, so, we'll do a sort of in-between Shabbos kind of thing. We don't do that in halacha. You hold that it's mutter, I hold that it's usser, so we'll sort of make it musser. We'll do it like in the middle. We don't do stuff like that. Why would we do that by a mezuzah? Because where does a mezuzah sit? At the front door of the home. And what's the message that you need to get when you walk into a home? That there needs to be compromise. That there needs to be a pshara. There needs to be a compromise made in life. And the only way to make a compromise is to have a sense of humility. To have an ability to be able to retreat, an ability to be able to say that if it doesn't follow my opinion, it's still going to be fine. It's still going to be okay. That the world is not going to collapse if I give in to somebody else. There's room for others to live and exist in this world. And for a home to do its magic, there needs to be that ability to compromise. And as much as that mezuzah sends us the message of godliness and remembering to bring God into our homes and from our homes back into the street, the mezuzah also sends us a message of having the ability to be able to make space for other people, having the ability to be able to have a sense of humility. When a house has tzoras, when it has leprosy is not really medical leprosy, it's spiritual disease. But when a house, not only can a person get it on their body, but a house can get it on its walls. And when a house gets a nego, when it gets a blight, when it gets this disease, we go to the kohen and we say to the kohen, kanega nirli babayis, that it appears that I have a nega, that I have some kind of disease in my house. Why does a house get a nega? So our rabbis tell us human beings get a nega when they speak lashon hara, when they speak gossip. And houses often get this nega, they get this disease when there is arrogance and haughtiness in the home. A nega in the bias, what is a bias? A bias is a place where there needs to be, it's a factory for humility. It's a laboratory to teach humility, to be able to teach a person how to make space for other people, how to be able to retract and retreat inside of themselves, to be able to make space and to be able to make and to understand and to be able to give honor to other people, to make room for other people. And when you see that stuff growing, you go to the kohen and you say to him, kanega nirali babayis, that there is a disease in my bias. There is a disease in the place where humility is supposed to be growing. Instead, there is disease growing on the walls. Because the basis of a home, of a bias, of a Beis, is this concept of humility. But it's not the only place that God showed us his humility. A little bit later in the parsha, when God says in the first chapter that he wants to create man, God turns to the angels and he says, Nase Adam, let us make man. Let us make man? God had a building committee? God was working, you know what they say a horse is? Oh, what a camel is. A camel is a horse put together by a committee. You imagine that God built his world by committee, by consensus? What do you think? Should we put the mountain over there? Should we put the mountain over there? God did not create his world that way. So why did he say, Nasa Adam, let us make man? Because what God was trying to teach humanity from that point on was this concept of humility. That even God went and consulted with the angels in order to send the message that it's not just about you, you've got to make space for others. That letter Beis that the Torah began with is the theme that runs through the parsha. Because humility is fundamental to our existence as human beings. To understand our place in this world, to make room for God and for other people, the ability to let go of our kavod, the ability to let go of our honor and to allow ourselves to worry about the plight of others. That's fundamental to our growth as human beings. And it's that the year needs to begin with. You want to grow as a person? You want to grow as a Jew? You want to grow closer to God? In order to be able to recognize a shortcoming and then to lift it and to shape it and to rework it requires at its very core a sense of humility. To have a sense of loyalty to God, there needs to be a sense of humility. To have a loyalty to other human beings, to have relationships that are healthy, there needs to be a healthy sense of humility. And that's why this is called Shabbos Breishis. It's the Shabbos of the Beis Reishis. It's the Shabbos of the beginning, which is the Beis, the ability to bring in others, the ability to have humility, because that is the fundamental start of growth, of relationships, of having a successful year. But it goes even one step further. Because humility is not only the basis of our existence, but it also endows us with a tremendous koyach, with a tremendous power. The Gemara says in Beis of Rabbi Lezer that there was a story that happened with Rabbi Lezer, the great sage Rabbi Lezer. Sheyara lifnei ateva, that he went to lead the service. There was no rain. There was a tremendous drought in the land of Israel. And he went to Lehispal al Geshamim. He went to pray for rain. V'yomer esrim v'arba brachos. He said 24 blessings, beseeching God. V'loinen, and he wasn't answered. His prayers didn't result in rain. Says the Talmud, Yored Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Akiva went after him, v'amar, and he led the service. And he said, Avinu Malkeinu ein lanu melech ela ata. Our Father, our King, there is no God, there is no King other than you. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, leman charachem aleinu. For your sake, show us mercy. And the skies opened up and the rains fell. So people were pointing fingers, looking in aspersion at Rabbi Eliezer. Shalom nena Kadosh Baruch Hu's tefillah, so that God didn't answer his tefillah. Yotzitza Baskoil, a heavenly voice came out and said, Lo mipnei shezeh gadol mizeh. Rabbi Eliezer was no less or no more than Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was no more or less than Rabbi Eliezer. These were incredible sages. These were the leaders of our generation. But the reason that one of them was able to bring the rain and one wasn't, mipnei shezeh gadol mizeh. Lo mipnei shezeh gadol mizeh. It's not because one was greater. Ela shezeh ma'avir al midosav, because this one had the humility not to stand on his own kavod, to have the humility to be yielding and forgiving. V'zeh eno ma'avir al midosav, and Rabbi Eliezer didn't have that same power to be able to do that. It's an amazing thing. It's a beautiful and important thing to be a ma'avir al midosav, to be a person that has humility. But why would that affect the power of one's prayer? So rabbis say that why is the prayers of the righteous compared to a pitchfork? So rabbis say because just like an atar, just like a pitchfork is able to take the grains and to move them from one place to another, the tefillah of the righteous have the ability to be able to move the das of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the mindset of God, from midas achzarias, from the characteristic of harshness and hardness, le midas harachmanos, to the attribute of mercy. The purpose of tefillah is to be able to turn to God and to ask Him to deal with us in a merciful way. Din is truth. It's the right way to deal with us. But we ask Him not to be so exacting. We ask Him to be filled with Rahmanas to us. When a person who has that midah, who has that characteristic, who lives that midah, who uses that midah, that ability to be able to be sensitive to others, that ability to be able to focus outside and not focus inside, to be able to have that humility, turns to God and asks God that He shower on us His Rahmanas. That is a powerful tefillah. That was the difference between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva had that humility, and therefore when he was asking God to express that and to deal with us in that way, there was a power in his words. He was living what he was asking for. He was existing the way that he wanted the world to be treated. That humility, that midah of anivus, is so fundamental to our existence. You ever hear people say, how can I listen to the rabbis? Who are the rabbis? They lived 2,000 years ago. What do they know about my life? What do they know about our world? That is a complete lack of humility. When we have difficulty listening to the rabbis, following the halacha, listening to God, it's not coming from a philosophical place. Though there are people that make it sound that way. Oh, I have a philosophical issue. I have a problem with suffering. I have a problem with theodicy. I have a problem with how this works. No, 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 no. At the end of the day, I have a problem with authority. I have a problem with humility. I have a problem with knowing what my place is and what God's place is in this world. And that has to be the foundation. Breishis bara Elikim. Beis. Breishis bara. God created. First was the creation. Then comes Elokim. Then comes God's name. God sets down this concept of humility to give us the model to how we have to build a foundation to be able to have a successful year. The successful year that we prayed for, the successful year that we hoped for, on this Shabbos, the beginning, God says, go build it. And this is the first brick that you have to lay. Humility. Beis. bias, room for others. And if you start there, then brick by brick, you'll be able to build this incredible edifice. You'll be able to build yourself as an incredible human being throughout the year. My thoughts on the Pasha, perhaps a little different than what many would speak about, but I think that it's as I mentioned, I think that it's a fundamental concept that needs to be laid as groundwork for the year. Okay, beautiful. I wish everyone an amazing, beautiful, wonderful Shabbos. And next week, Monday, so we'll have next week again. Sunday is just difficult because Motzoi Shabbos is just it's just difficult for me to get things rolling. Motzoi Shabbos, which is your Sunday morning. So next week Monday morning. So we'll go Monday, Tuesday, Emir Hashem. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. Great.
All right.
Thank
Everyone
you
should
so
have
much.
a wonderful,
Gosh, Rabbi. Good Shabbos.
beautiful Shabbos.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
All
Shalom.
right, thank you very much.
Shabbat Shalom. My pleasure. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.